Hello, today I will be delivering a lecture on the central theme of cross-cultural perspective on body, pain and healing. I have divided my lecture primarily into four main sections. The first section will be centering on the cross-cultural understanding of body, pain and healing. The second section will focus on the theoretical overview of body, pain and healing. In the following section, that is the third section, I will try to enlighten you all on the concept of colonization of the body, which will be later followed by a conclusion. Studies based on body, pain and healing related to human beings have been central in the field of academics. Different theorists have defined body, pain and healing in their own context and have found that each culture is different from the other in explaining the role of these three concepts. First, let us study how body is perceived across different cultures. In Japan, the concept of gotai refers to the ideal of maintaining bodily intactness in life and death to the extent of not piercing one's ears. When Crown Prince Naruhito was considering whom to marry, one criteria for the bride was that she should not have pierced ears. Underlying the value on intactness is the belief that an intact body ensures rebirth. Historically, a various practice of beheading a victim was the ultimate form of killing because it violated the integrity of the body and prevented the enemy's rebirth. Gotai is an important reason for the low rates of surgery in Japan compared to the United States and the widespread popular resistance to organ transplantation. Ideals about the female body are implicated in the high rate of caesarean births in Brazil. Ethnographic research in Salvador, a major city of the state of Bahia in northeastern Brazil, it reveals that vaginal childbirth is considered more primitive, painful and destructive of a woman's sexuality than caesarean delivery. One doctor said, more and more the vulva and vagina are becoming the organs of sexuality and not parturition. Doctors recommend a caesarean delivery as safe, practical and causing no aesthetic damage. A given pain's meaning derives from an individual's history and environment. As Cmsr notes, pain offers a tabula rasa on which to inscribe our most fundamental cultural ideas about suffering. The International Association for the Study of Pain provides a widely used definition of pain: an unpleasant sensory and emotional experience associated with actual or potential tissue damage or described in terms of such damage. Mary Moore Free noted that pain is a ubiquitous feature of the human experience. Pain is of course a pervasive condition of large melting pot societies such as the USA. In the USA, pain is among the biggest causes of disablement and hence is responsible for a substantial apportionment of disability payments. According to Chegnon, among the Yanomamo Indians, an Amazonian tribe living on the Orinoco River in Venezuela, the tribal members are referred to as the fierce people because their daily entertainment is composed of X and or club fights. The young men of the tribe put on their fights. The Yanomamo boys attend sessions of painting and piercing the skin of their elders, which is undertaken in preparation for the fights in order to learn this craft for their future roles as fierce people. The young women paint the skin of the men with war decorations and also act as cheerleaders for these fights. These warriors show with pride the bald, scared crowns on their heads honor badges earned from their courage during these fights. While death by blows of the clubs and axes does occur among the men, missionaries have given these fierce people shotguns. He reports that as a result of these guns, survival of these people is threatened because tribesmen clearly articulate that if Yanomamo Indians receive guns, they will kill each other. Coming down to the cross-cultural study of healing, it was noted that around the world, thousands of different natural or manufactured substances are used as medicines for preventing or curing health problems. Anthropologists have spent more time studying the use of medicines in non-Western cultures than in the West, although a more fully cross-cultural approach is emerging that also examines the use and meaning of Western pharmaceuticals. Phytotherapy is healing through the use of plants. Cross-culturally, people know about and use many different plants for a wide range of health problems, including gastrointestinal disorders, skin problems, wounds and sores, pain relief, infertility, fatigue, altitude sickness, and etc. Increasing awareness of the range of potentially useful plants worldwide provides a strong incentive for protecting the world's cultural diversity because it is people who know about botanical resources. Leaves of the coca plant have for centuries been a key part of the health system of the Andean region of South America. Coca is important in rituals, in masking hunger pains, and in combating the cold. In terms of health, Andean people use coca to treat gastrointestinal problems, sprains, swellings, and colds. About 85% of 3500 people surveyed in Bolivia reported that they use coca medicinally. The leaf may be chewed or combined with herbs or roots and water to make a medicinal beverage. Trained herbalists have specialized knowledge about preparing mates. One mate, for example, is for treating asthma. Made of a certain root and coca leaves, the patient takes it 3 or 4 times a day until cured. Minerals are also widely used for prevention and healing. For example, many people worldwide believe that bathing in water that contains high levels of sulfur or other minerals improves health and cures ailments such as arthritis and rheumatism. Thousands of people every year go to the Dead Sea, which lies beneath sea level between Israel and Jordan, for treating skin diseases. The mud from the shore and the nearby sulfur springs relieves skin ailments such as psoriasis. In Japan, bathing in mineral waters is popular as a health promotion practice. Though the body serves as a central role in communicating individual and cultural identities, it has often been neglected in social research. There has always been a disembodied approach of the body in social research. Seeking to go beyond biological and physiological explanations for human behavior, classical social theorists often turn their attention away from the role of the body in human interactions, focusing on more abstract themes such as class, nationality, and power. Stephen Talley viewed in her study that starting in the 1970s, the body became a central point of interest in the social sciences. This growing prominence of the body in scholarly literature is due to a variety of factors. The politicization of the body first rose to prominence as part of the feminist movement's efforts to end exploitation of the female body. The AIDS crisis of the 1990s and ethical debates surrounding issues such as abortion and euthanasia have also contributed to the growing attention given to the body in the social sciences. French scholars have been particularly influential in the development of the sociology of the body. The notion of physical capital developed by Pierre Bourdieu relates to the symbolic value of the body and how physical characteristics can be used to improve one's social status. One of German sociologist Georg Simmel's most famous work is his essay, The Sociology of the Senses. According to Simmel, the senses have a purpose that goes beyond their physiological usage. His description of the function of the eye illustrates the argument. The eye has a uniquely sociological function. The eye of a person discloses his own soul when he seeks to uncover that of another. Similarly, Irving Goffman, who is famous for his research on social interaction, gave particular attention to the role of bodily performance in the presentation of self. British anthropologist Mary Douglas, who traces how concepts of dirt differ from culture to culture in her book Purity and Danger, has argued that the body is a symbol of the social structure. The word pain is derived from the Latin word poena, meaning a fine or a penalty. According to Taber's Encyclopedic Medical Dictionary, pain is a sensation in which a person experiences discomfort, distress, or suffering due to provocation of sensory nerves. Taber further defines pain as one of the cardinal symptoms of inflammation, which may vary in intensity from mild discomfort to intolerable agony, and in most cases pain stimuli are harmful to the body, tend to bring about reactions by which the body protects itself, and with adaptation to pain stimuli not readily occurring. According to Gisbers and Niven, pain perception is composed of highly interactive, emotional, cognitive as well as sensory components. Pain is observed in small, cohesive, traditional societies. For example, in West African countries such as Benin, during labor and midwifery delivery, the expectant and soon-to-be new mother expresses her pain by a barely audible wee. According to Sargent, the process of labor and delivery in Benin is strictly a women thing. Men are neither present at nor have a responsibility in this event. It can be inferred that the cultural behavior during this women thing results from the laboring mother's lack of need of extra attention from the male members of the society. The individuals achieve healing by following a spiritual consecution of action. According to the anthropological facet, healing is an active response to one's suffering. An individual seeks for the way out so that he or she can escape from the suffering. This is done either by taking up the scientific way or by indulging oneself in religious rituals and practices related to accrue healing. As per the psychological dimension, healing involves achieving the whole man. Finally, through the sociological parlance, healing involves the welfare of the members of the society. It strives to make the individuals return to the regular course of social life so that they can contribute for the development of society at large. A health system encompasses many areas: perceptions and classifications of health problems, prevention measures, diagnoses, healing, and healers. One of the vibrant fields of study under healing in the modern century is ethnomedicine. Ethnomedicine has expanded its focus to include topics such as the perceptions of the body, culture, and disability, and change in indigenous or traditional healing system, especially as resulting from globalization. Allen noted that leaves of the coca plant have for centuries been a key part of the health system of the Andean region of South America. David Arnold, in his book Colonizing the Body, State Medicine and Epidemic Disease in 19th century India, identified that since the coming of the British in India, cultural fusion has taken place at all levels. Colonial rule built up discursive practices that concerned themselves with the physical being of the colonized. Colonialism used or attempted to use the body as a site for the construction of its own authority, hegemony, legitimacy and control. In part, therefore, the history of colonial medicine and of the epidemic diseases with which it was so closely intertwined serves to illustrate the more general nature of colonial power and knowledge and to illuminate its hegemonic as well as its coercive processes. In spite of such a phenomenon, David Arnold noted that the Western medicine was not a white man's medicine. Rather, it was imparted to one and all in India and its citizens. It was in this way that the Britishers could eradicate or bring a solution to some of the most deadly disease prevalent in India. Let us now view the three main diseases which thrived during the period of India's colonization under the British rule. Number 1. Smallpox, the body of the goddesses. British physicians in 19th century India ranked smallpox among the most prevalent and destructive of all epidemic diseases. The scourge of India, smallpox, reputedly claimed more victims than all other diseases combined, its tenacity and malignity making it one of the most violent and severe diseases to which the human race is liable. Smallpox accounted for several million deaths in the late 19th century alone, amounting on average to more than 100,000 fatal cases a year. But it was not just the prodigious mortality caused by smallpox that made it appear an exceptionally menacing disease. There was also the horrific nature of the disease itself. An acute contagious viral infection, smallpox, produced an intense burning fever, followed by multiple eruptions and pustules, which clustered thickest on the face and limbs, but in the most extreme confluent form covered almost every inch of the body's surface. A third or more of those seized by smallpox died, usually within 2 weeks of the first symptoms of the disease. But even those who accept death were likely to be disfigured or incapacitated for the rest of their lives, their faces transformed into pockmarked lunar landscapes, the sight in one or both eyes dimmed or destroyed through ulceration of the cornea. Some authorities attributed 3/4 of all blindness in India to the effects of smallpox. A disease so widely prevalent, so destructive of human life, and so fearful in its physical manifestations could not but impress itself forcefully upon the minds of Indians and Europeans and have a profound impact upon their own conceptualization of disease. One route to comprehending and gaining some form of control over smallpox lay through religion. Understood as a divine presence rather than as a disease, smallpox occupied a prominent place in Hindu beliefs and rituals. The goddess Shitala and other deities identified with smallpox were worshipped and propitiated in virtually every part of the country. Shitala means the cool one, and this has been interpreted as an euphemistic way of avoiding reference to one of the most obvious and alarming aspects of the disease. Across northern India, from Sindh and Gujarat in the west, through northern and central India to Bengal, Assam and Orissa in the east, smallpox was identified with the goddess known generally as Shitala, but also simply but expressively called Mata, Mother. In some areas, Shitala was the name given both to the disease and to the deity who presided over it. In Bengal, she was sometimes called Basanta or Basanta Chandi, that is spring goddess, and the disease Basanta Rog, that is spring disease, after the season in which smallpox was most prevalent and in which the goddess was most widely celebrated. A second route not incompatible with the first and acknowledging Shitala's rights over the body was through variolation, inoculation with live smallpox matter to produce a controlled and moderated form of the disease and so protect the individual against subsequent attack. A third path, vaccination, introduced into India by the British in the early 19th century, went further in the preemption of natural smallpox through prophylactic intervention by using cowpox vaccine rather than live smallpox matter. But vaccination did more than substitute one regulatory technique for another. For whereas variolation was commonly seen as a religious act as well as an effective means of prevention, vaccination was secular in character and alien in origin, representing a significant extension of the state power over the individual and community. Although Western medicine could no more cure smallpox than could its Indian counterparts, the advent of vaccination encouraged British physicians to see smallpox as a preventable disease at a time when the control of the most other major diseases lay beyond their therapeutic grasp. Because of its relative simplicity and cheapness, and because it at first appeared to be such an unequivocal demonstration of the effectiveness of Western medicine, vaccination was taken up by the colonial state and became emblematic of its self-declared humanity and benevolence towards the people of India. The government of Bombay introduced Vaccination Act, Act 1 of 1877, came into force in September 1877, which made it a compulsion for the people to get their child vaccinated within 6 months of their birth. Failure to comply with this law was meted with punishments. This act brought out significant positive results, due to which the act was later introduced in the other states too. Thus it took the whole of 19th century in order to properly regularize the system of vaccination in case of smallpox. It encouraged greater reliance in this field of colonial activity, as in many others, on persuasion, on Indian intermediaries, and a gradualist approach to social change. Number 2, cholera, disease as disorder. Like any other disease, cholera has no intrinsic meaning. It is only the result of a microorganism, albeit a very potent pathogen as far as human beings is concerned. But in the 19th century India, it acquired enormous meaning and significance from its various cultural and political context, from the ways in which it infiltrated the lives of the people, from the diverse public reactions it provoked, and from the manner in which it gave expression to the underlying fears and antipathies of the colonized and colonizers alike. With the possible exception of smallpox, Indians and Europeans endowed no other disease in India with greater significance or more dramatically illustrated the depth, complexity and changing configuration of the colonial divide. For both Western and Indian medical system, cholera was an exceptionally troublesome disease, unresponsive or resistant to most of the favored therapies of the time. This made cultural and religious interpretations of the disease appear all the more pertinent and attractive. It also added to the British perception that the disease was peculiarly subversive, a disorder which not only challenged attempts to establish the superiority of Western medicine, but also emphasized the physical frailty and political vulnerability of the colonial rule. Because cholera epidemics were seen to be so intimately bound up with Hindu rites and pilgrimages, Even the introduction of sanitary measures and Hafkine's anti-cholera serum did not resolve the political problems that surrounded attempts to contain cholera. At the same time, divided opinion within the medical profession in India as to the nature of the disease and the mode of its transmission made it more difficult for doctors and sanitarians to press the government to act, easier for the administration to adhere to a non-interventionist policy that favored many of its commercial, financial and political interests. Cholera was a disease which seemingly presented an ideal site for the colonization of the body. Its prevalence and its far-reaching military and economic consequences made it an urgent candidate for medical and sanitary intervention. It fueled a powerful critical discourse about Hinduism and popular religious rites and practices. It made it possible, after the manner of Florence Nightingale, for Western observers to equate sanitation with civilization and find India awfully wanting it both. It was a disease that figured prominently in early public health measures in Britain, an Asiatic disorder that aroused the fear of Europe and inspired the holding of several international sanitary conferences. And yet, for reasons this chapter has sought to explain, cholera produced a relatively muted reaction from the colonial regime. Cholera provides a striking illustration of how a political reading of a disease or of the likely consequences of medical and sanitary attempts to control it could set powerful limits to state intervention against that disease. Number 3. Plague. Assault on the body. The early plague years constituted a major crisis point in the history of state medicine in 19th century India. This was not so much because of the scale of sickness and mortality caused by the disease, though over the course of the period between 1896 and 1914 this proved considerable. Rather, the crisis was caused primarily by hostile public reaction to the exceptional measures the government had taken in response to its own political and economic imperatives and to the advice given by its medical and sanitary officers. In many cases, the plague measures anticipated the arrival of the epidemic itself and gave rise to a flurry of rumors about their nature and purpose. The scale and violence of public reaction caused the administration to doubt the political wisdom of persisting with such unpopular measures and brought about a dramatic shift in policy, with senior medical advisers supporting the view that only more conciliatory measures were practical, even though the cost in terms of plague deaths would inevitably be great. But the opening years of the plague epidemic represent a crisis in a wider sense. 2. A crisis of confidence in Western medicine and public health generally. In the slow evolution of public health and state medicine in India, the epidemic marked a critical departure from earliest enclavist attitudes and the narrow preoccupation with European and military health. Clearly, the measures taken in 1896 to 97, first in Bombay and then in towns and cities across India, involved an unprecedented degree of medical and sanitary intervention, unparalleled in the earlier and more tentative campaigns against smallpox and cholera. And though the intensity of public reactions brought about a substantial retreat from the more assertive policies of the early plague years, these initiatives were never entirely reversed. Rather, they paved the way for latter, albeit more cautious measures and a greater commitment to the idea of public health. Sanitary staff in the cities was strengthened, programs of public welfare and health education were initiated, and the government, still in 1896 largely indifferent to bacteriology and parasitology accepted the need for new research institutes and a corps of specialist medical researchers. But the immediate effect of the interventionist measures of 1896 to 1900 was to stir up a great tide of alienation from Western medicine. Vaccination against smallpox, inoculation against cholera, attendance at hospitals and dispensaries, all these quantifiable indices of the progress of Western medicine suffered severe reversal from the fear engendered by the coercive plague measures. Even the attempt to overcome the kind of public antipathy and suspicion which provoked the attacks on Bombay's Arthur Road Hospital in October 1896 by setting up caste hospitals run by local communities and allowing treatment by Ayurvedic or Unani practitioners initially failed to elicit much support. So deep was the prevailing suspicion of hospitals and doctors. Popular rumor revealed how far medicine was associated with the coercive and alien aspects of colonial rule. It was identified with torture and death, not with health and healing. And yet this crisis was perhaps a necessary rite of passage for Western medicine in India. It is remarkable how quickly hospital and dispensary numbers returned to and then steadily outstripped their former levels. Thus, religion attempts to provide the individuals with treatment measures in the form of the practice of rituals. It provides various means to cater to the healing of the human body from its associated pains. The Western culture, on the other hand, was rational in nature and always hovered on scientific techniques so that the diseases could be stopped through medical intervention. Thus, as culture varies from one place to another, similarly, people are engrossed with different ways of reciprocating the individuals of the society through varied healing measures. Therefore, it can be noted that body pain and healing are understood in different ways in different cultures. It depends on the cultural tradition of an area on how they will treat the body of an individual and the associated pains leading to its healing mechanism. Though in the modern century scientific outlook have made the people to have an uniformed thinking pattern, but still culture plays a dominant role in determining body pain and healing as social concepts. Thank you.